Welcome back to Coffee Unlimited with J and D. I'm Janelle Acker, and I'm joined by my co-host Danielle Nagel, and we're here today to talk about authenticity. And some of the things we want to touch upon is, what does it mean to be authentic? Why might it be difficult for someone to be their authentic selves? And why we believe it's important to be authentic, whether that's in the workplace or in your daily personal lives. And I'm so excited to talk about this with Danielle. She has shared some stories with me in the past, and I thought they were pretty wild, pretty wild examples of being courageously authentic. And I wanted to take an opportunity for her to share those stories with everybody listening because I thought they were really powerful. So, Danielle, thank you so much for being willing to talk about this topic today.
So
And
excited.
if you don't mind, I do want to hear in your own words, what does authenticity mean, or what does it mean to be authentic?
I love that you asked this question. And, I've been thinking about it since you texted me. What does it really mean to be authentic? Because I think we evolve and our views change. And I think, who was I at 20 and who am I now at 50 and how different I am. I remember just being in more of a space of wanting to fit in my early 20s and now feeling a bit more grounded in who I am and being able to be more authentic. And yeah, so if I think about this question, what does authenticity mean? I feel like it's first recognizing what your values are. And I think a lot of people
Mm.
just flow through life without stopping to think, what truly matters to me? Is it family? Is it health? Like, what's important to me? And what's something that I don't want to compromise in any relationship, whether it's a partnership or friendship or a working relationship? And I think those pretty much will stay somewhat true for the course of your life. I feel like those values that I've held, even though some ideas have shifted and I'm, hopefully not the same person I was when I was 20 with all of the insecurities that I carried with me. But yeah, I think that's how I would define authenticity is the ability to be true to your values. What about you, Janelle? I would love to
I love
hear
that.
what your definition would be on this.
Yeah. When I first thought about the question, I thought to myself, being authentic means speaking your truth. And when I say speaking, maybe I mean it could be literally saying the truth or like what you're thinking and what your ideas are or what your beliefs are. But I also think it's metaphorically speaking your truth. And it's doing the things that you want to do. It's wearing the clothes you want to wear, eating the foods you
Mm,
want to eat, being in the jobs that you want to be in. All of those are examples of speaking your truth. And when I was listening to you, I really liked what you said about, thinking back to who you were in your 20s versus who you are now. And at first when you said that, I thought, oh, maybe who we are in terms of authenticity actually changes over time. Maybe we are actually different when we're 20 than now. But then when you said that it was about fitting in your 20s,
mhm.
that was like a splash of water in my face because I thought, yeah, actually, that is who I was in my 20s. I was fitting in. I wasn't necessarily different to the core. I wasn't different than who I am today, but I spent a lot of time trying to be who I thought others wanted me to be,
Mm,
whether that was teachers in college or partners in relationships or bosses in my in the workplace. I
yeah.
was I'm actually envisioning myself and maybe like my first job at Nike as an example, thinking about what I was wearing, how I was talking, how I was responding to coworkers or my boss in particular. And I think a lot of it was putting on a show, to be honest. I
Mm-hmm.
was trying to be the perfect employee, the perfect coworker. And and then when I think about how exhausting that was,
Yeah.
that is, I think that's the real consequence of not being authentic is it takes a lot of energy to not
Mm-hmm.
be authentic. And so, yeah, I guess when I think of being authentic, there's a carefree aspect to it. It's not work
Mm-hmm.
because you're just being who you are. You're just being truthful. I
Yeah.
actually think back to times when I talk to my kids about telling the truth and how difficult it is to lie, to keep up a lie.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm
Yeah.
talking about something simple, like a simple little lie about whether they cleaned their room or not, whether they clean their room or not, or whether they brush their teeth or not. Lying about it is work because you have to actually consciously lie. And you have to then cover up what you're lying as well. Whereas a truth can come so freely if you're willing
Mm-hmm.
to let it be free. So I guess coming full circle, I feel like I've hit a place in my life where I'm unapologetically myself. I'm unapologetically authentic, and it's so easy. It's so
Mm-hmm.
carefree because I'm not putting in effort to be someone that I'm not, and it's a really freeing and really beautiful place to be, I think.
It's interesting
Yeah.
that you say it's
Um,
easy because I feel like I've known you in the later half of your life where I've only known you to be unapologetically bold, courageous, speak the truth in a meeting. Doesn't matter if it's an executive leadership team, you will cut through the noise and get right into what your truth is. And when I would see that, I wouldn't think that's easy. I actually think, wow, that takes a lot of courage to do that. But then
mhm.
perhaps like the ease is where your thoughts, your words, and your actions are in alignment rather than you're thinking something, which I think many of us will do in a meeting, especially in a high stakes meeting like that, where your reputation, your job could be on the line and you're thinking,
Mhm.
I don't agree with this at all, but you're just nodding along. And then that
Mhm.
is not easy. Like the residue of that, of holding on to that
Yeah.
stays far longer.
Well, it's a really good distinction, and I do think that it wasn't always easy. So I think what's happened is I've because I've done quite a bit of personal inner work, and you know that, and maybe that's probably a whole nother topic, is all the self-development that I've done, the personal leadership that I've done, leading self type of work that I've done. Because I've done a lot of work on myself and I want to say there's just something that happens when you hit your 40s or 50s. There's a point in life where you just stop caring about the BS and you
Yes.
just feel like you've had enough and you just want to be yourself. I only say that I say that because I've talked with a lot of people who, for some reason, as soon as they hit their 40s, it's like they take on a new persona almost, where they wear
Hmm.
their invisible crown and they become unapologetically themselves. And I don't know why that is. It is that way, but I know that it happens to quite a few people. But what I would say is, it wasn't always easy. I did nod along in the past. I did go along even when I thought that something was not right. There were times where I didn't speak up or I went along with something that I knew was probably not the right thing to do. But some of the things that I know now that I didn't know then include my self-worth is not tied to my job or my job title or the company that I work for. That what I have to say is important. And I also know that nobody else sees the world the way I do. And so if I don't share my point of view, then it's just something that I'm leaving on the table. And I don't want to be a person that leaves anything on the table.
Mhm.
And so when I think back to some of those situations you might be talking about, Danielle, where we're in some high stakes meetings, like you said, and there's senior leaders who I disagree with, and I say that I don't agree with where we're heading with this, or I don't agree with that decision, and this is why. I think because now I know that if I don't say it, one, I'll be disappointed in myself. But also, if I don't put my point of view on the table, then we can't even consider that point of view.
Mhm.
And I also think that's a bit of a shame. So, yeah, I guess the whole thing has been a journey in self-discovery, self-courage, maybe even self-worth. And now this is where I'm at, where I do feel it's easy to speak my truth and to be authentic.
Mhm.
How do you feel about being authentic, Danielle? I mean, when you shared, okay, first of all, we were going to get to this story, but the story that you share took place a long time ago. So you've been practicing authenticity for quite a while. And I'm curious where you developed the courage to be your authentic self and how you developed your courage. But first, let's share the story.
Okay, that's true. When I think about it, I was in my 30s when I
Mm-hmm.
had when I was joining the Chopra Center. But the story was about a group of investors. They wanted to create the first Chopra Yoga Center. And I was in Vancouver. I was a yoga teacher at the time. And they had asked me, would you like to be part of the first Chopra Yoga Center in Vancouver? I had been following Deepak Chopra for many years. And I said, yes, but I only want to be in a management role if, I'm going to be part of the organization. So they said, okay, well, we're going to have a dinner party and we're inviting a bunch of instructors and we're going to bring David Simon, who's the co-founder of the Chopra Center with Deepak. He was really the CEO of the Chopra Center. So we go there, and it's this beautiful, welcoming space. All this food that was prepared by his private chef. There was lamb, chicken, all meat, like tons of meat, and and wine as well. And I looked over at David Simon, and I mean, I didn't know him at all at the time, but his plate was all vegetarian. He was drinking a tea. It was probably some sort of herbal tea. And I thought to myself, okay, I am not going to become a vegetarian for this meeting here. Like, this is ridiculous. I love to be wined and dined. And I also feel like if somebody's cooking for me, they took the time to cook for me, I am going to lovingly appreciate everything that they've made. So I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll take the lamb. Oh yeah, I'll take that glass of red wine. And I noticed though some of the other teachers in this space who I didn't think were vegetarian and I knew drank were like not they were kind of staying with like the salad and the veggie. I'm like, oh no, no, I am so done with that. Like if I cannot be authentically myself, I don't even want to be a part of this organization. So I just sat down right next to David Simon with my, plate full of lamb and chicken and a big glass of red wine. I was like, cheers, bon appetit.
When you told me the story the first time, I was laughing so hard because I can picture the whole scene with your heaping pile of meat on your plate, your red wine, your pink cheeks because
My Asian
hello,
glow.
the Asian glow, and you're just buddying right up next to him, saying cheers.
Yes.
I love that. And I'm imagining the rest of the room as well, just watching this all play out to see how it goes for you.
Yeah.
Like, oh goodness, she's doing it. She's really doing it. But there's more to this story, so you have to keep telling because that in itself was pretty bold. This is basically a job interview for you,
Hmm.
and a pretty big job from where you were at the time. This was going to be a
Absolutely.
really big breakthrough for you. So
Yes.
important. And you already right from the start being very authentic. But
Hmm.
then tell the story about the when you actually met with him for a meeting for kind
Yeah.
of the actual interview.
So I guess I made
This
like
cracks me up.
I made the first pass, the first cut, I
Yeah, yeah,
guess.
you got to stay. You got to stay for dessert.
So they said, okay, well, we want you to spend a little bit more time with David Simon and some of the other staff members in Toronto. And then you can also experience their week-long Ayurvedic retreat. And it was all vegetarian, no alcohol, but that was fine. So
There was no other option. So what could you do?
exactly. So I show up and it's this totally different experience than I've ever had, where there's hundreds of people eating in silence. I mean, it was profoundly moving.
Hmm.
But there wasn't a lot of yoga, as in the physical practice of
Mhm.
yoga. And I was like, okay, they're opening up Chopra yoga centers. That's the vision. And it doesn't seem like David Simon or Deepak are really practicing a lot of yoga asana because otherwise, why wouldn't it be in the programming? There's just, a little bit of asana in the morning. So I'm meeting with David Simon. He's like, "Oh, so how are you enjoying the retreat?" And so I said, "Oh yeah, it's great. I'm learning a lot, but I'm confused. Like you're going to open these Chopra Yoga centers. I don't feel like yoga is a big part of the Chopra Center. And in fact, I don't even think you practice yoga." Because I said, I mean, there was a class this morning and you weren't there. And he goes, "Oh, I practice asana. I practice every day." And I said, "You do? Well, prove it." And he's like, you want me to prove to you?" And this is somebody who, I mean, a lot of people in my field would look to as like, I don't want to use the term guru, but a senior teacher, right?
Yeah.
Somebody who has been in these practices and teachings for decades, who spent time with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, who like he's done the work. And he's here leading hundreds of people at every event. And I said, "Yeah, I don't believe you. Prove it to me." So he gets up out of his chair and he sits down on the floor. This is a man, he was in his mid 60s. He sits down on the floor in a seated staff pose. So he has no problem sitting on the floor. And he plants his palms down. He lifts his bum up from the earth
Yeah.
and then crosses his legs, moves into a headstand, a tripod headstand, jumps back into a push up. And I'm like, what the frick is happening right now? I'm like, what? Yeah. And then so he does this.
You're
He does
like,
this.
you're like,
No warm up.
hold my wine while I pull my foot out of my mouth.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, David, hold my wine. And then so he sits back down and he goes, "Okay, now your turn." And I was like, and I really, really enjoyed. I mean, in that moment, I was like, "Oh no, no, I can't. I just had lunch. Like, I'm not gonna do this." But then, of course, I had, made him do that, so I felt like I needed to prove that I have somewhat of a practice. And of course, he totally outshined me with his skill set. I was like floundering, in a push up or whatever. But I just thought, okay, serves me right
It does
to
serve you
yeah, I
right.
know, of course. I was like, oh God. But But you know what? At that point, I just felt like I can be myself. I also
Mm.
felt like I created the space for him to just be himself too, where he was like,
Hmm.
of course I practice. Now you go. So it was like this immediate, just kind of partnership that I felt like I wasn't putting him up on some sort of pedestal, which I think many other yoga teachers, maybe just younger than me or something, would have done. Like, I've
Hmm.
seen this man on stage multiple times. He's a physician. He's written many, many books. Like, I'm going to look at him like somebody who is above me.
Mm.
And I just didn't want to go there. I think at that point in my life, I think also having children just makes you give give less of a fuck. Right?
Yeah,
Like you're
yeah,
like, you
it's
know
so
what?
good.
I've
Yeah.
had kids. Like, come on.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah. And you got the job, right?
yes.
After all of that, after I just wish I could have been a fly on the wall watching you say, prove it. Oh my gosh, I just love that story so much. And you know what I realized now, listening to that story a second time, is when I wanted you to share that story, in my mind, I was thinking, this is a really great example of you being authentic. And it is. It is a great example of you being your authentic self. But what I'm also realizing now, and hearing it, you were calling him out and ensuring that he was being authentic. Because
Mm,
if you think about it, you're also, and I believe this with any job interview, a job interview is not only the company or the hiring manager making sure that you're the right person for the job, but every interviewee should be asking themselves, is this the right place for me? And
hmm
that's kind of what you were doing. You wanted to make sure that this whole thing was in integrity, and him in particular, he was an authentic person.
mm.
And you demanded to know right on the spot. You're going to test that out. And I love that. I love that because I think it is important that authenticity goes both directions.
That's such a great observation, Janelle. I didn't even think about that. That yeah, I
Hmm.
was I was basically interviewing him. Like, is
Yeah.
this the right? Are we in alignment?
Yeah. Truly.
Mm-hmm.
And if what he espouses is the reality for him, and I love that you did it. And then, hey, that was really by asking him that and making him do that elaborate tripod headstand push-up thing. That was the only way for you to really know,
Well, I mean,
to be
honestly,
honest.
though, I wasn't expecting that. I mean, I thought he would just maybe bust out in a warrior too, and I'd be like, "Oh, yay!" My expectations were low.
Well, I love that he went above and beyond your expectations. That just makes the
Yes.
story even better because I do imagine that your jaw had dropped and hit the floor.
Oh, yes, yes, it did. I was like, "Oh my gosh, I should have just shut up."
Hmm. But what the story is also a beautiful example of um, you being your authentic self and it all working out.
Mm,
Because I think one of the reasons why some people are so hesitant to be their authentic self, especially let's even take an interview situation
yeah.
where, you want a job and you want to impress. I think that's a really accurate statement for most people. You're
Mm-hmm.
to impress when you're interviewing. And I think it's sometimes you second guess being your true authentic self because you worry that you won't be chosen. You won't be selected if you're being yourself in that moment. And what you just shared is a really beautiful example of you were yourself and and it worked out. And I have a lot of examples myself where I felt like I was being interviewed for, various things throughout my life and spoke my truth to some questions where I could have sugarcoated some things
Mm-hmm.
or said what I knew they probably wanted to hear.
Yeah.
'Cause let's be honest. I work in HR. I've led talent acquisition. I kind of know what interviewers are looking for. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can ace an interview if I want to. No problem.
Yeah.
And And I even, think back to my most recent job interview is at Van City Credit Union. And I remember, and I had to do multiple interviews, like some with the executive team, some with the board of directors. And in each one, when I was asked to basically introduce myself right from the start, I talked about how I, as a person, struggle with depression. And
Mhm.
I talk about my time in 2018 when I went to a facility to get help, and a live-in facility to get help with my depression and my thoughts. And when I went into the interview, I knew I was going to share those stories because, like I said, I'm at a point in my life where this is who I am. I'm not going to try to be anyone I'm not.
Mhm.
Depression is something that I live with and at times struggle with. And so there can be a time in my work situation where I need to take some time off because I'm not feeling well. I'm not doing well mentally.
Mhm.
And I'm not going to try to say it's something different. I'm not going to try to make up some other excuse why I can't go into work. I actually want to just be honest with you as my team, my coworkers, my boss, the board, that you know what? I might need to take some mental health breaks because that's just something I work through. And I wanted to
Wow.
make sure that I was upfront with them right from the start, but also depending on how they responded to that
Mhm.
or how they felt about it, then I also knew whether or not I would belong at that organization, or if I was, going to have to try to fit in. And so
Wow.
I really believe, as I coach people trying to get new jobs, I really encourage people to just be themselves. Don't overthink
Mhm.
an interview. Don't try to come up with perfect answers. Don't dress a certain way because you think you need to dress a certain way. Don't even stress about an interview. Just listen to a question being asked and answer it honestly. You either know the
Mhm.
answer or you don't. You either have an example or you don't. It's not something you have to overly prepare for. Just be yourself, answer honestly, and what will be, will be. And if you don't get the job, there's probably a reason why you wouldn't actually want the job, or
Mhm.
it's not the right job for you.
Yeah.
And maybe that's a blessing in disguise. And maybe the next interview will actually be the right place for you.
Mhm.
So, yeah, I just think being authentic in the workplace specifically is really important. And what better way to practice it or to actually know that the workplace is the right place for you than to be authentic in your interview, which is what you
Wow.
did. Yeah.
Janelle, you hadn't told me that you had
Oh,
shared that
yeah.
in the interview process. Like I
Yeah.
just know you to be very authentic, and of course you would share that. But
Hmm.
I'm so inspired that you were like, yeah, this might not be the right place depending on their reaction.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
wow.
And then when I did receive the job offer and I accepted the job offer, there's so much relief
Mm,
in knowing that I can enter that workplace without hiding anything. Because I would say for the most part of my life, I've always been pretty transparent and also self-deprecating in a lot of things. You know this about like I eat like a kid. I eat a lot of junk food and fast food.
okay. You
I
know
was
what
the one.
though? You eat like a bird. I mean,
Well,
because what
I
I
try to eat
thought,
a little bit at a time,
yeah,
but I
like you
do
order
eat
a
anything.
Coke,
Yeah.
you order a Coke and you have three
I do.
sips. I'm like, let me
Yeah.
finish this.
Well, but
You
that's the
order
thing
two
though. Yeah.
tacos, you eat like half a one.
But I do order it. And so, you were at Lululemon with me. I'd be the one drinking the Coca-Cola when maybe others were drinking kombucha. Or even at Van City, we would have board meetings and there would be this beautiful spread of food and the drinks. And I swear I was the only person who ever got Coca-Cola or any kind of soda. Everyone else got the sparkling water or the
Yeah.
Pellegrino. And I'm always going to be myself in that sense. Um, but I don't know where I was going with that. But all that to say, like, I just think we have to be ourselves. We really do.
Yeah, I
And
love
oh,
that.
I know what I was going to say. I said, for the most part, I've been transparent, like with what I eat, how I
Mm-hmm.
dress. Right from the start, I was always someone who didn't dress up to work, and I
Yeah.
was just always comfortable, and I wasn't ashamed to be comfortable, and I didn't feel less than when I didn't have, designer clothes that I was wearing or something like that. But I hide my depression because it
Mm,
really wasn't until 2018, and my depression started in 2000, like 2000. So
mm,
18 years before I shared that side of me with anyone in a workplace.
yeah.
So that was a long time to be hiding that part of me. And now I feel that there's nothing that I'm hiding. And that's just so freeing. And so, I go back to this word of carefree.
Yeah.
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 Hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
when you're that way, it attracts so many others to you and to also be their authentic selves as well.
Hmm.
I'm
Hopefully.
thinking,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about a takeaway. So for our listeners, it's like, what do we want them to walk away with? I know it's always, we go through different conversations and stories, but what's one thing that you would want somebody to walk away with after listening to this episode?
I think for me, it's how do you want to live your life? Do you want to live your life trying to fit in, or do
Hmm.
you want to live your life finding the places you belong?
Oh,
And if
chills.
yeah, right? I actually gave myself chills on that one.
Yeah. That was a
I
mic
just
drop
I
moment.
just pulled that right out of my butt too. I didn't even think about that ahead of time. But you talking about fitting in your 20s,
Mm-hmm.
and then me just thinking about where I feel like now when I'm being myself, I know where I belong. I really do. I know who I
Yeah.
belong with, and I know what organizations I belong at. And so wherever you're at in your life, if you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, beyond, I think really look at your life and ask yourself, where am I trying to fit in? And is it worth it? At the end
Mm-hmm.
of the day, is it really worth trying to fit in with these people or this organization? Or would you rather live a bit more carefree, just being yourself, and the places that you belong will show up for you? The
Mm-hmm.
doors will open, I think, for
Yeah.
those places that you belong.
I love that, Janelle.
Mm.
Well, thank you so much for asking me to share that story about David Simon and the Chopra Center and sharing your experience about belonging and fitting in. I just love this conversation.
It's a good one.
I hope those of you who are listening enjoyed it as much as I did. And we drop new episodes on Wednesdays to help you get through that work week, that hump. We know what it's like, the Monday through Friday grind, 9 to 5.
Yep.
Hopefully, it's not a grind though, especially if you find a place where you belong. And anyway, you can subscribe to our channel, listen, and if you have any questions or want to reach out to us, you can find us on Instagram at Coffee Unlimited with J and D. We'll see you next time.